This video is created with the help of Spotting by the Bay. Be sure to check out their channel for awesome rail fanning. A major rail expansion is on the horizon, and the ACE train is at the heart of it. With new routes, upgraded infrastructure, and modern rolling stock. This project represents a bold leap toward faster, more reliable, and more connected transportation across the Central Valley. As a key part of the Valley Rail Initiative, the ACE expansion could reshape mobility in California and set the stage for a new era in regional transit. What's driving this transformation, and how close are we to seeing it happen? Let's break it down in today's episode. Big thanks to our awesome subscribers. You make this channel possible. If you're new, hit subscribe and join our growing community. The San Joaquin Valley and the San Francisco Bay Area are among California's most economically dynamic regions, generating substantial inter-regional travel for both commuters and freight. This economic interdependence has fueled the growing demand for reliable transportation options, as seen in the rising ridership of the Altamont Corridor Express ACE rail service. ACE has experienced significant growth, from 160,000 passengers in fiscal year 2021 to more than 680,000 in 23-24, with an average of 2,480 daily riders. The upward trend continues, with a forecast of 774,000 riders, or 2,975 daily, for fiscal year 24-25, highlighting ACE's expanding role in supporting the region's travel needs. However, the increasing pressure on existing transportation infrastructure has led to severe traffic congestion on key corridors such as Interstate 580, Interstate 680, and Highway 99. Recognizing these challenges, California has launched several major initiatives to modernize and expand its rail network, most notably the ACE and the Valley Rail Project. These efforts, including introducing hydrogen-powered train fleets, covered in detail in our previous video, represent key steps toward a cleaner, more connected transportation future. The Valley Rail Project is a comprehensive and transformative program jointly undertaken by the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission, SJRRC, and the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, SJJPA. The project is divided into two distinct expansions, Sacramento and Southern. Let's find out what they are about. The southern expansion of the ACE train is being implemented in two phases. Phase 1 extends service from Lathrop to Ceres, while Phase 2 continues from Ceres to Merced. The expansion follows Union Pacific's Fresno subdivision, branching off from the current ACE route at a newly constructed North Lathrop station, located just north of the existing Lathrop-Manteca station. Approximately 51 miles of track between Manteca and Merced will be double-tracked, with some existing sidings upgraded to mainline standards. Under initial operating plans, once Phase 1 is complete, 4 daily round-trip trains will operate between Ceres and North Lathrop. These trains will begin in Ceres in the morning, stopping at North Lathrop to allow time transfers to westbound trains towards San Jose. Most trains will terminate at North Lathrop, though one will continue directly to San Jose. In the afternoons, 3 or 4 return trips will operate from North Lathrop back to Ceres. During this phase, a temporary bus service will connect Ceres to Merced. Upon completion of Phase 2, direct rail service will replace the temporary bus service between Ceres and Merced. 4 trains will originate in Merced each morning. 3 will travel north to Natomas via North Lathrop, with passenger transfers at North Lathrop for San Jose-bound service. 1 train will travel directly from Merced to San Jose. Afternoon return trips will include 3 trains from Natomas and 1 from San Jose, all terminating in Merced. Crucially, the Valley Rail Project is designed to integrate with other key rail initiatives in California. In Merced, the expanded ACE service and enhanced San Joaquin service are planned to connect with the future California high-speed rail system, creating a vital interchange for passengers traveling to and from Southern California. Final engineering is underway for Lathrop to Ceres, and design work for Ceres to Turlock is ongoing. Construction on the Ceres station and track expansion is scheduled to begin in 2025. Station openings for North Lathrop, Manteca, Modesto, and Ceres are planned for 2026 to 2027, while Turlock, Livingston, and Merced are targeted for 2029 to 2030, aligning with high-speed rail's initial operating segment. Service to Ceres is expected to begin in 2027, with full extension to Merced projected for 2035, depending on high-speed rail timelines and funding availability. The project was bid in December 2023, broke ground on June 20, 2024, and began construction in May. Completion is expected within 22 months. The Sacramento extension will expand ACE and San Joaquin service north from Stockton to Sacramento. In the first phase, 6 new stations will be constructed between downtown Stockton and Natomas in North Sacramento. A new layover facility is planned near the Natomas station as part of a later phase. Upon completion, ACE will introduce a new daily round-trip train between Natomas and San Jose via Stockton, offering commuters a direct connection across the Central Valley and Bay Area. The Sacramento extension will also support broader regional service through the proposed North Valley Rail project. This initiative would extend passenger rail north from Natomas to Chico. Under initial plans, 2 daily trains would travel south from Chico to Stockton via Natomas, with one continuing to Union City and the other connecting to San Joaquin service. 2 northbound return trips would serve Chico in the afternoons. In October 2020, the final EIR for the Valley Rail Sacramento extension was approved and adopted by the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission. The next step for the Sacramento extension will be detailed design, followed by construction starting in 2025. While the Natomas extension to Sacramento Airport remains on track for 2026, the proposed Natomas to Chico corridor is not anticipated until 2031. Delays in the southern segment, now expected to open 5 years later than the original 2025 goal. The ACE train service expansion and Valley Rail project represent a major financial investment. The expansion is estimated at $481.5 million, though this could change depending on agreements with Union Pacific, which owns much of the track. The broader Altamont Corridor vision, which includes extensive upgrades and potential electrification, is projected at $9.7 billion. Key projects within Valley Rail, like the $237 million Stockton Diamond Flyover, also require significant funding. Costs may rise due to inflation in materials and labor or unforeseen infrastructure needs. For example, a new pedestrian bridge in Modesto to accommodate future ridership has increased costs. To address potential budget issues, the SJRRC has secured additional funding, including $142 million from the state to offset inflation. The current Valley Rail budget exceeds $2 billion, emphasizing the project's substantial financial commitment. Despite billions in investments and years of planning, much of the project remains stalled due to red tape, coordination issues, and rising costs. One major challenge is working with Union Pacific, which owns much of the track. Their slow and complex approval process for changes, such as siding expansions and station access, has caused delays. Some members of the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission argue that Union Pacific is benefiting more than commuters at taxpayer expense. In addition to coordination struggles, increased costs from changing environmental regulations and building codes, like new electric vehicle charger mandates, have pushed back timelines. The original goal of opening new AC stations by 2023 is now set for 2030. Public and environmental feedback has also led to station redesigns, reflecting strong community interest but contributing to further delays. SJRRC views these revisions as signs of meaningful engagement. Amtrak's Empire service is expanding. This iconic rail corridor connecting New York City to upstate destinations like Albany, Buffalo, and Niagara Falls is gearing up for a wave of exciting changes in 2025. With bold new initiatives designed to boost service, increase capacity, and modernize infrastructure. With added train cars, a revamped spring schedule, and major tunnel upgrades on the horizon, the Empire service is poised to deliver greater convenience and reliability for travelers across New York State. Let's dive into what's coming for this vital regional rail service. Starting April 28th this year, a new spring schedule will take effect. Amtrak will offer 10 daily southbound trains from Albany to New York City, and 10 daily northbound trains from New York City to Albany, ensuring reliable connectivity for commuters, business travelers, and tourists despite ongoing work on the East River Tunnel. To facilitate construction and optimize resources, trains 238 and 235 will be temporarily suspended. To meet growing demand, Amtrak will add a 5th train car to 28 trains per week on key routes, including those between New York City and Albany, and between New York City and Niagara Falls, significantly increasing seating capacity for peak travel periods like the upcoming holidays, appealing to families, tourists visiting Niagara Falls, and business travelers alike. Additionally, the Adirondack and Maple Leaf trains will operate as a single combined train between New York City and Albany, with an extended dwell time in Albany, improving efficiency, smoothing schedules, and potentially boosting local tourism by giving passengers more time to explore. Schedule times may shift by up to 30 minutes earlier or later, offering earlier southbound departures to New York City for commuters and business travelers, and later northbound departures for leisure or work trips upstate, potentially reducing congestion, improving on-time performance, and enhancing trip planning. The Amtrak Empire Service, a cornerstone of inner-city rail travel in New York, has long been a lifeline for commuters, business travelers, and tourists alike. Stretching 460 miles from New York Penn Station to Niagara Falls via Albany, the service carried around 2 million passengers in the federal fiscal year 2024, increasing around 10% compared to 2023. Even higher than before the COVID-19 pandemic, it set records for both ridership and revenue. Known for its frequent daily trips across 16 stations, the Empire Service integrates with other Amtrak routes like the Maple Leaf, Lakeshore Limited, Adirondack, and Ethan Allen Express, making it a critical component of the Northeast's rail network. However, the service faced challenges in recent years due to aging infrastructure, notably the East River Tunnel, which suffered flooding during Superstorm Sandy over a decade ago. To address this, Amtrak embarked on a $1.6 billion investment to rehabilitate the tunnel, a project aimed at improving train reliability not only within New York, but across the broader Northeast Corridor. As part of this effort, Amtrak temporarily adjusted schedules and reduced some services, such as cutting 2 daily round trips between Albany and New York City in late 2024. These adjustments, however, sparked concerns among stakeholders, including New York Governor, who urged Amtrak to minimize disruptions for passengers. Additionally, Amtrak merged the Adirondack and Maple Leaf routes between Penn Station and Albany, resulting in nearly a 2-hour stop in Albany for Adirondack passengers in one direction and a wait of over an hour for Maple Leaf riders in the other. In response to concerns about schedule disruptions from the East River Tunnel Rehabilitation Project and due to the holiday season, Amtrak implemented a temporary expansion of the Empire Service on December 2024, originally set to end on March 2, 2025, to maintain service levels. Recognizing the need for continued reliability, Amtrak extended the schedule through April 27, 2025, ensuring continuity for over 98% of customers. These service restorations are a huge victory for passengers who depend on the Empire Service, New York Governor said in an Amtrak press release, thanking the company for minimizing disruptions. Amtrak president made an assertion: Amtrak is committed to providing the best possible service to our Empire Service customers while we begin our critical work on the East River Tunnel used in this service. Beyond these immediate changes, the Empire Service expansion also opens the door to broader possibilities, such as adding cafe car service, introducing Wi-Fi on more trains, or leveraging the upcoming Siemens Venture train sets, Amtrak Aero, by 2029 to 2030 for modern amenities, eco-friendly technology, and potentially higher speeds. The infrastructure upgrades, including the East River Tunnel rehabilitation, could also pave the way for future high-speed rail initiatives, reducing travel times between Buffalo and New York City to under 7 hours, driving economic growth, tourism, and sustainability in New York State, reflecting Amtrak's long-term vision of transforming the Empire Service into a world-class rail experience. Moving to another news item, in a significant boost for rail travelers, Amtrak's Texas Eagle is poised to elevate its offerings with the return of the beloved Sightseer Lounge car. This development signals a restoration of amenities sidelined since October 2020 due to equipment constraints and pandemic-related service reductions. The Chicago to San Antonio route will see the lounge car reinstated starting with the southbound departure on March 3, 2025, followed by the eastbound trip on March 5th, after the equipment cycles in Texas. Alongside the lounge, Amtrak has recently introduced a new locomotive, a diner, and a cafe sightseer lounge combo to the Eagles Consist, enhancing the journey with panoramic views through its signature wraparound windows. This upgrade responds to passenger demand for improved comfort and scenery enjoyment, reversing years of scaled-back service once marked by the removal of observation cars and traditional dining under former leadership. The move aligns with Amtrak's broader push to modernize long-distance routes, promising a richer travel experience and hinting at further capacity expansions across its network by Memorial Day 2025, delighting advocates and riders alike. The Texas Eagle, one of Amtrak's prominent long-distance routes, has shown impressive growth in ridership over the past year. Serving key cities across Texas, Arkansas, and Illinois, including Chicago, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin, the Texas Eagle has become a vital link for both regional and long-distance travelers. In 2024, the route carried 325,709 passengers, a significant increase of 31,268 passengers compared to 2023, which saw 294,441 riders. This 10.6% growth reflects the broader trend of recovery in rail travel as demand continues to rise. When comparing the 2024 ridership to 2019, the pre-COVID period, the Texas Eagle shows a slight but notable improvement. In 2019, the route carried 321,694 passengers, just under this year's total, by a margin of only 4,015 passengers. This marks a 1.3% increase in ridership, indicating that the Texas Eagle has not only bounced back from the pandemic, but has surpassed its pre-COVID numbers. This growth is an encouraging sign that the Texas Eagle remains a crucial mode of transportation for both business and leisure travelers. The year-over-year comparison highlights the route's strong recovery and steady momentum.
Well, you may one day be able to take the train to Green Bay.
Trains are finally coming back to Green Bay, Wisconsin. After years of planning and early setbacks, we could have a connection to the National Railroad Museum with Amtrak's national network. So what does it mean for travelers, local economies, and the future of rail in Wisconsin? Stick around, we're breaking it all down.
Hear what more access to train travel could mean for the Badger State.
Hi, welcome to Great Train Speed. If you're passionate about trains and smart transit infrastructure, our channel is for you. To understand the significance of the proposed expansion, it is essential to consider the historical context of passenger rail in Green Bay. Green Bay was a key stop on several rail lines, with approximately 10 passenger trains passing through daily, connecting it to major cities like Chicago and Milwaukee. However, the rise of automobile travel and the decline of passenger rail led to reduced service, and by 1971, when Amtrak assumed control of most intercity passenger rail services in the United States, Green Bay was no longer part of the national rail network. Since then, residents have relied primarily on road and air travel for long-distance journeys. The current proposal to extend Amtrak service from Milwaukee to Green Bay represents a revival of this lost connectivity, driven by the need for alternative transportation options amid growing traffic congestion on Interstate 41 and the success of existing Amtrak routes. The proposed route would extend the existing Hiawatha service northward, capitalizing on freight rail corridors operated by Canadian Pacific and Canadian National Railway, CN. Trains would depart Milwaukee on Canadian Pacific tracks and connect with CN lines near Duplainville. The preferred plan also envisions new stops in Fond du Lac, Oshkosh, and Appleton, bringing service to key cities in the Fox Valley before reaching Green Bay. These locations were selected strategically to maximize ridership and economic benefits. Earlier route options, such as one through West Bend, were dismissed due to infrastructure limitations. While using existing freight lines helps lower initial costs and expedites the timeline, successful implementation will require detailed negotiations with CN to avoid conflicts with freight operations and to upgrade tracks and signaling systems to passenger standards. In addition, several infrastructure improvements outside of the Green Bay corridor are crucial for this expansion's feasibility. The Muskego Yard freight rail bypass in Milwaukee is vital to freeing up track capacity, allowing more frequent and reliable passenger trains. The project has already received $72.8 million in federal funding, with construction starting in 2026 and substantial completion anticipated by 2029. Additionally, upgrades at the Milwaukee Airport Rail Station, including the construction of a second platform, are scheduled to finish in 2026. These projects represent a coordinated effort by WisDOT to modernize Wisconsin's rail network, which will directly benefit Green Bay's future service.
Only because our federal debt, they get federal money.
In December 2023, the Wisconsin Department of Transportation secured a $500,000 grant from the Federal Railroad Administration through the Corridor Identification and Development Program. This federal support, made possible by the bipartisan infrastructure law, launched the first step toward bringing rail service directly to Green Bay. Currently, a feasibility study is underway, with a final report expected by June 2025. This study will assess critical factors such as potential ridership, infrastructure requirements, route viability, station locations, and cost estimates. If the findings are positive, the project will move into a comprehensive service planning phase, projected to take about 3 years. The early stages are fully funded, but later phases, including environmental reviews, engineering design, and eventual construction, will require additional financial commitments, particularly from the state government. Financially, while the early feasibility stage is federally funded, future phases will require a mix of federal and state money. The service plan phase demands a 10% state match, which Governor Evers included in his biennial budget proposal, signaling executive branch support. However, strong opposition from Republican leaders in the Wisconsin legislature, who cite concerns about long-term subsidies and the economic viability of passenger rail, poses a significant political hurdle. Their resistance could jeopardize future funding stages, regardless of initial federal support. This political divide echoes previous setbacks in Wisconsin rail projects, such as the canceled Milwaukee to Madison rail line, where political opposition halted federally funded development. For Green Bay's rail expansion to succeed, building bipartisan consensus will be critical. Even with steady progress, the timeline for bringing passenger rail to Green Bay spans several years. Following the feasibility study, the service plan development phase could take about 3 years, after which environmental reviews and engineering design would begin. Construction and the start of operations are not expected for at least 6 to 10 years after the feasibility phase concludes. Furthermore, the expansion's success is intertwined with other major rail infrastructure projects, such as the Muskego Yard freight rail bypass in Milwaukee, which aims to divert freight traffic away from the Milwaukee Intermodal Station. This bypass, scheduled for completion by 2029, is essential for increasing passenger rail capacity statewide, including for the Green Bay extension. Additional improvements, like the planned second platform at the Milwaukee Airport Rail Station, will further support expanded service. Do you think the Trump administration will support this project? Comment 1 if you agree, and 0 if you don't. The benefits of bringing Amtrak service to Green Bay are significant. The city would gain a direct, efficient transportation link to Milwaukee, Chicago, and the broader Amtrak national network. Improved connectivity would support business growth, attract skilled workers, encourage tourism, and stimulate downtown revitalization through transit-oriented development. Rail travel offers environmental advantages over car travel by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and providing a more sustainable transportation option. Moreover, for travelers tired of traffic congestion along I-41, trains offer a more relaxed and productive journey. Green Bay officials, including Mayor Eric Genrich, local businesses and advocacy groups such as New Rails and the Wisconsin Association of Railroad Passengers, have consistently voiced strong support, emphasizing the potential economic and community benefits. Despite these clear advantages, future challenges remain. The political battle over state funding is one of the largest obstacles. Without legislative support, especially during the expensive design and construction phases, the project could stall indefinitely. Additionally, negotiations with Canadian National Railway could complicate implementation. Freight companies prioritize cargo operations, and securing access for passenger trains may require extensive infrastructure investments and compromises. Another challenge is the estimated train travel time between Green Bay and Milwaukee, expected to be around 2 hours and 50 minutes, which is longer than the typical 2-hour car drive. Nevertheless, many travelers may prefer the convenience, comfort, and productivity that rail service offers compared to driving, especially when considering stress-free travel during peak times or adverse weather. Currently, Amtrak operates 2 daily thruway bus trips between Green Bay and Milwaukee, stopping in Fond du Lac, Oshkosh, and Appleton, with Lamers bus lines providing an additional daily trip. The bus journey takes approximately 2 hours and 25 minutes, slightly faster than the projected train travel time. However, trains offer greater comfort, seating space, and amenities, and can be more attractive for longer trips, business travelers, or those connecting onward to Chicago via Milwaukee. The proposed rail service would match the existing bus frequency with 3 round trips daily, providing consistent, reliable options for passengers. While pricing details for the train are not yet finalized, current thruway bus fares range from $28 to $39 each way, with additional costs for Chicago connections. Broad local support for the project is evident. WisDOT and Amtrak have embraced the expansion as part of a larger strategy to strengthen Wisconsin's passenger rail system. Local government leaders in Green Bay, Appleton, Oshkosh, and Fond du Lac have championed the effort, citing its potential to drive economic growth and provide more travel options for residents. Advocacy groups and business organizations have echoed this enthusiasm, emphasizing the broader community benefits. However, the divide between strong local support and skeptical state-level Republican leadership highlights the political dimension of the project's future. The Green Bay expansion's viability will likely depend on securing durable, bipartisan support to overcome financial and ideological opposition. To sum up, the push to bring Amtrak service back to Green Bay is more than just a transportation upgrade. It's a chance to reconnect communities, boost local economies, and reimagine how Wisconsin moves. With historic roots, widespread public support, and clear benefits on the table, the momentum is real. But the road ahead is long and packed with political and logistical hurdles. Success will hinge on continued advocacy, smart planning, and, most importantly, statewide cooperation.
Amtrak is considering a proposal to expand rail service from Chicago to Toronto.
The Wolverine Corridor is always on the move, a lively stretch filled with business, culture, and connection. It's one of North America's busiest regions, where rail has long played a key role in moving people and ideas. Now, after years of waiting, imagine this: a train that finally connects Chicago and Toronto, 2 iconic cities with no transfers, no interruptions. It feels a bit like stepping into a time machine, doesn't it? Back to the days when the International Limited ran smoothly across the border, carrying not just passengers but stories, dreams, and memories. This isn't just a railway project. It's a chance to reignite that spirit, to bring back not just a train but the feeling of belonging and movement. A ride that's faster, smoother, and filled with the joy of travel. So where does the project stand today? And why does this route matter so much for the communities along the line? Let's dive in on this episode of Great Train Speed. Hi, we are Great Train Speed. If you're fascinated by rail and rail-related infrastructure, we're here for you. It's been a long time, decades in fact, since you could hop on a train and ride straight from Chicago to Toronto without switching trains. Right now, if you want to travel by train from Chicago to Toronto, you can get close, but not quite there. The US and Canada each have strong train systems, Amtrak on one side, Via Rail on the other. But even though their tracks come within just 9 miles of each other, they don't connect. That small gap means travelers have to switch to a car or local bus just to cross the border. But that could finally change. As part of Amtrak's 2021 Connect Us plan, a new project is aiming to link Chicago and Toronto with a single, seamless rail trip. The idea is simple but powerful. Take one daily Amtrak train from Chicago to Detroit through the busy Wolverine Corridor and join it with a Via Rail from Windsor to Toronto. Together, they'd become a full Chicago to Toronto service with no breaks in between. To make this happen, the plan includes rail upgrades and closer coordination between the two train systems. It's a big move for a region full of energy, home to top businesses, great schools, and one of the longest public rail lines in the U.S. Specifically, in 2023, the mayor of Windsor stepped into the spotlight, releasing a detailed fact sheet to the media. It outlined a bold vision, a cross-border rail link that could be operational by 2027. No transfers, no extra steps, just a smooth ride between two of North America's biggest and busiest cities. At the heart of this plan is Windsor, the Canadian city right across the river from Detroit. Windsor would become the key stop that links the American and Canadian parts of the trip. To make that happen, the Essex Terminal Railway, a short but important stretch of track in Windsor, needs some work. Part of the $200 million budget will go toward fixing up 9 crossings to make them safer for both passenger and freight trains. The proposed route would be a modified Amtrak Wolverine eastbound service departing in Dearborn. As the train leaves Dearborn, it would diverge from its usual path, veering onto Conrail and CPKC tracks, heading towards a new Amtrak station at Ford's Michigan Central Innovation Center in Detroit. This wouldn't just be any station, it would be a hub for connections to Windsor, offering a fresh and easy way to move across the border. From here, the journey continues as the train moves out of Michigan Central Station, crossing over to Windsor via the historic Detroit River Rail Tunnel. Once in Windsor, the train would seamlessly connect with the Essex Terminal Railway, taking passengers directly onto the tracks of VIA Rail via a new connection track. In detail, Amtrak's Wolverine trains 350 and 355 could be extended from Detroit to Windsor, enabling time transfers with VIA trains 73 and 76 to and from Toronto. Initially, Amtrak expects to offer one daily round trip with an estimated travel time of 9 hours and 57 minutes between Chicago and Toronto, and 4 hours and 46 minutes between Detroit and Toronto. These schedules are subject to change, as both Amtrak and VIA Rail have expressed interest in increasing service frequency. Importantly, this cross-border service would not require Amtrak and VIA Rail to share train sets. Instead, the two operators could maintain separate fleets while coordinating operations through a shared facility at Windsor, simplifying logistics and reducing maintenance burdens. Beyond the transportation benefits, the project offers significant economic value. The total investment in Windsor is projected at $44 million, aimed at infrastructure upgrades, new track construction, and station improvements. This would not only support hundreds of construction and rail industry jobs, but also strengthen the local supply chain. The new service is expected to generate $62 million annually in economic impact, with an additional $202 million stemming from one-time capital expenditures. The new cross-border rail option would also relieve pressure on existing land crossings. U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported a 35% increase in crossings at Detroit between fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023. The rail service provides a new conduit for travel that complements existing modes, such as the tunnel bus operated by Windsor Transit. This rail service would directly connect major downtown stations, enabling more convenient travel for both tourists and business travelers across the Midwest and Southern Ontario. However, there are other challenges for this route, including coordination between border protection authorities, who does what on the train, and whether food served in the U.S. can be brought into Canada. But according to one expert, it's not a big deal.
All of those are complicated, but all of those are issues that are solvable.
Michigan Central Station is the main part of a new 30-acre innovation hub in Detroit's Corktown neighborhood. It first opened in December 1913 and was once one of the busiest train stations in the country, with over 4,000 passengers a day in the 1940s. The station was designed by the same architects who built New York City's Grand Central Terminal and was known for its beautiful, grand design. As more people began traveling by car and plane, train use dropped, and the station closed in 1988. Initially, Ford Motor Company planned to invest $740 million to restore Michigan Central Station. However, for years, the building remained abandoned and deteriorating. Now, as part of a larger $950 million revitalization project, Ford is actively restoring the station. The station will become a center for new ideas in transportation and technology, helping to bring new energy and jobs to Detroit. Instead of using Amtrak's current Detroit station in the new center area near Woodward Avenue, future trains from Chicago will stop at a new platform next to Michigan Central Station. This change fits into a larger project led by Ford Motor Company. Ford is spending a huge amount of money to turn the old, empty building into a modern place for offices, tech startups, and transportation research. By adding Amtrak service to the site, Michigan Central could become a key part of Detroit's future, mixing history with modern transportation. The renovation of the station is huge and very detailed. The building was once the tallest train station in the world. With 8 million bricks, Michigan Central Station's materials could stretch about 1,000 miles. Workers have carefully brought the building back to life. A key feature of the reimagined Michigan Central Tower is a dedicated youth programming floor, encompassing 23,000 square feet. They repaired or replaced 102,000 square feet of windows and restored 1,300 square feet of decorative terracotta trim. Inside, they added 4,200 new light fixtures, including 3 large chandeliers that matched the originals from the early 1900s. One of the biggest changes was fixing the ceilings in the Grand Hall and waiting room, which are covered in Guastavino tiles. Workers used 8.7 miles worth of grout to repair the 29,000 tiles, and most of the tiles are the original ones from when the station was first built. Before any of this could happen, they had to clean out the basement, which had 3.5 million gallons of water, and remove almost 4,000 cubic yards of debris that had built up over the years. The reopening of Michigan Central through the Michigan Central Open celebration, along with the larger redevelopment of the area, marks a new chapter for Detroit. It's a way to honor the city's past while building a future that is more connected, innovative, and inclusive. Hopefully one day we learn more of the development of the expansion of Amtrak Wolverine and finally see this train reconnection comes back to life once again. Amtrak's Cascades line is set to receive a significant facelift. Backed by an initiative, Washington State has laid out clear goals to improve transportation services and meet the region's growing demand for mobility. This initiative reflects not only an investment in rail infrastructure, but also a broader push towards sustainable, high-capacity transit across the Pacific Northwest. So why are they looking for this expansion? What exactly is this initiative about? And how did the public react? If you've taken the Amtrak Cascades, you know it's more than just travel. It's a scenic journey along the Salish Sea and Cascade Mountains. Serving 18 cities across British Columbia, Washington, and Oregon, the 467-mile route connects key urban centers from Vancouver to Eugene. With 7 daily round trips as of late 2023, it supports tourists and daily commuters alike. Amtrak Cascades is showing signs of strong momentum in 2025. Between January and March, the line carried over 1.1 million passengers, a significant rise from 953,700 during the same period in 2024, reflecting growing public confidence in regional rail. Revenue followed suit, climbing to $139.7 million, up from $110.4 million, with $29.3 million generated in the first quarter alone. This success was driven by initiatives like the Youth Fare program, launched in May 2024, which introduced free rides for passengers 18 and under between Bellingham and Vancouver. With more than 15,000 youth riders using the service by September, it stands out as Amtrak's only fare-free youth initiative nationwide. With all these successes, it's clear that expansion is on the horizon. But the road to where we are now hasn't been a smooth, easy walk covered in roses. In March 2020, the Amtrak Cascades service faced a dramatic downturn as the COVID-19 pandemic forced widespread travel restrictions and border closures. By 2020, operations had been reduced to just 2 daily round trips, and annual ridership plummeted to 172,000 passengers. A slow recovery began in 2022, marked by the phased restoration of routes and careful coordination across borders. On September 26, 2022, Amtrak reinstated 1 daily round trip between Seattle and Vancouver, following the reopening of the US-Canada border in late 2021. This milestone required significant upgrades to Vancouver's Pacific Central Station to meet US Customs pre-clearance standards, as well as coordination with Via Rail Canada and the Canada Border Services Agency. Amtrak crews also underwent specialized training in cross-border operations after a period of more than 2 years of inactivity in Canadian territory. Further restoration efforts were initially delayed from summer 2022 due to staffing shortages and logistical challenges, which limited the availability of equipment and train personnel. Meanwhile, service between Seattle and Portland ramped up, reaching 5 daily round trips by late 2022 as ridership climbed to 427,000, an increase of over 158% from 2020. In 2023, Amtrak continued to build momentum. On March 7th, a second daily round trip to Vancouver was added, restoring full pre-pandemic service levels to Canada. Additional enhancements at Pacific Central Station improved processing capacity and accessibility for cross-border travelers. Later that year, on December 11th, a sixth Seattle-Portland round trip was introduced, bringing total daily round trips across the corridor to 7. 1 between Vancouver and Seattle, 1 between Vancouver and Portland, 3 between Seattle and Portland, and 2 extending from Seattle to Eugene. And recently, House Bill 1837 has been enacted, setting ambitious new targets for Amtrak Cascades service. The bill mandates at least 14 daily round trips between Seattle and Portland, and a minimum of 5 round trips per day between Seattle and Vancouver, British Columbia. This would more than double the current schedule, which offers 6 round trips to Portland and just 2 to Vancouver. The recent passage of House Bill 1837 by both chambers of the legislature marks a significant step toward realizing Patterson's long-held vision. This bill sets clear targets to increase the frequency, reliability, and speed of Amtrak Cascades service. At the same time, Amtrak's soon-to-be upgraded Sodo rail yard is preparing to host the new Amtrak Aero trains, designed to support this future growth. Skeptics might say that HB 1837 does not provide direct funding for these upgrades. However, this initiative will direct them to prioritize planning and coordination for existing intercity passenger rail investments. The legislation will require the Washington State Department of Transportation to incorporate key performance goals, speed, reliability, and emissions reductions into all current and future planning for the Amtrak Cascades line. While in the Senate, speed benchmarks were removed from the bill, replaced by a mandate for an independent study by the Joint Transportation Committee to review WSDOT's service development plan and recommend appropriate speed targets. This kind of legislation is not new. Back in 1993, the state set ambitious high-speed rail goals: 2.5-hour trips between Seattle and Portland by 2000, and trains running up to 150 miles per hour by 2030. Yet today, Amtrak Cascades still maxes out at 79 miles per hour, trips take over 3 hours, and high-speed rail remains a long-term aspiration. The 1993 targets were more visionary than actionable, leaving the state still working toward those goals decades later. Do you think we will soon one day see the expansion of this service? Comment 1 if you agree, and 0 if you don't. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So, how did the public respond to the recent changes in the Cascades corridor? The news about Amtrak Cascades' upgrades brought mixed reactions from citizens. Many people were happy and supportive, knowing that Amtrak faces a tough job working with freight railroads. For example, the current speed limit on the tracks is 79 miles per hour, and raising it to 90 miles per hour, as BNSF suggests, will be very hard to make happen. Some said the idea of an express train sounds exciting. They were also glad to hear that new train sets will arrive in 2026, replacing the old, unreliable cars. Regular travelers were hopeful about shorter travel times. Some said taking 45 minutes off the trip to Portland would be a godsend. They liked the idea of the train being a more comfortable, civilized way to travel compared to flying, even though the train can be unreliable. Some people even think flying between Seattle and Portland is silly and wish there were better trains like in France, where short flights are banned if there's a good train option. On the other hand, some people shared bad experiences. One person said they got stuck for 4 hours between Portland and Seattle because a freight train had priority and they had no cell service during the wait. Others were surprised or skeptical about the announcement that service might double. They wondered if that means more old diesel trains pulling boxcars instead of modern high-speed trains like those in China or Japan. Despite the planned upgrades and long-term benefits, Amtrak Cascades continues to face several significant challenges. A key concern is on-time performance. Between January and October 2024, only 48.2% of trains arrived within 10 minutes of schedule, well below the system's 88% reliability target. The primary causes of delay were interference from both freight and other passenger trains, along with speed restrictions imposed by host railroads such as Union Pacific, BNSF, and Canadian National. House Bill 1837 aims to nearly double that performance, targeting 88% punctuality while expanding overall service. These service disruptions have taken a toll on customer satisfaction, which averaged just 74.7 out of 100 points between late 2023 and fall 2024. Passengers also faced additional frustrations due to seasonal disruptions, including landslides in Clark County early in the year and widespread air conditioning failures during the summer. While efforts such as BNSF's spring slope stabilization and improved maintenance protocols have been introduced to address these issues, concerns remain. Underlying many of these problems is aging infrastructure. For example, in March 2025, routine inspections revealed corrosion in several Horizon railcars, prompting Amtrak to immediately remove all 70 Horizon cars from service nationwide, including 26 that operated on the Cascades line. This sudden loss of equipment drastically reduced capacity. Currently, only one non-Horizon Cascades train remains in operation, running a single daily southbound trip from Seattle to Eugene and returning north in the afternoon. As a result, service between Seattle and Vancouver, British Columbia, previously offering 2 daily round-trip trips, has been temporarily suspended. Following the project, WSDOT is studying an ultra-high-speed rail line connecting Seattle to British Columbia's Lower Mainland and Portland, and won a $50 million grant for planning in the final days of the Biden administration. Top speeds are currently restricted to 79 miles per hour on the fastest sections of the Cascades corridor, but WSDOT has suggested improvements to support 90 miles per hour top speeds. Campaigners are aiming higher with sections for up to 110 miles per hour, as new Cascades equipment will be capable of reaching top speeds of 125 miles per hour. Along with this, signal and systems upgrades, junction and rail yard modifications, and more train sets would be required. The proposed high-speed rail line, which hopes to cut travel times to each city under 90 minutes, is still unfunded and likely decades away from opening. Amtrak is moving forward with a major expansion of its King Street yard in Seattle, backed by nearly $300 million in funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This upgrade includes a new state-of-the-art maintenance facility designed to support the arrival of the new Aero train set to enter service in 2026. While the improved yard does not immediately increase Amtrak Cascade service, it lays the groundwork for future expansion. The project is on track for completion by 2027 and aligns closely with Amtrak's ambitious net zero strategy, which aims to source 100% carbon-free electricity by 2030 and eliminate climate pollution from its operations by 2045. The new facility will run entirely on renewable energy and operate without fossil fuels for heating, marking a significant step toward a cleaner, more sustainable transportation network.
After years of planning and anticipation, a bold new era for commuter rail is on the horizon. Backed by billions in proposed funding, the MARC train system is set to expand beyond Maryland's borders, bringing long-awaited improvements to service, speed, and regional connectivity. For daily commuters between DC and Virginia, this could be a game-changer. And for the broader rail industry, it marks a rare moment of renewed hope and investment. This is more than just a transit project. It's a realization of a 25-year vision finally picking up steam. And to find out more about this project, stick around as we dive into all the exciting details of this game-changing development, right here on Great Train Speed. At present, MARC is the commuter rail service that connects a lot of the Baltimore-Washington area, running on the Penn, Camden, and Brunswick lines. But now, Maryland is thinking bigger, much bigger. The state has rolled out a $13.7 billion 25-year plan to expand MARC service past its own borders. The idea is to eventually run trains all the way north to Wilmington, Delaware, and south to Alexandria, Virginia. As the Washington Post reported, it's one of the boldest transit plans Maryland has considered in years. The main goals? Better regional connections, more frequent trains, and a system that can keep up with growing demand. But there's a catch. MARC is already facing a $2.5 billion funding gap, which could slow things down unless new money is found. To help turn this big plan into reality, the Maryland Transit Administration put together the MARC Growth and Transformation Plan, which lays out how the expansion would roll out in phases. First, service would extend into Virginia, with the Brunswick line adding stops at L'Enfant Plaza, Crystal City, and Alexandria, starting with 2 trains a day, sometime between 2031 and 2040. The Penn line would also begin running hourly service to those same Virginia stations. Meanwhile, in the north, a pilot program would bring the Penn line to Wilmington, Delaware, with 2 rush-hour trains making stops in Elkton and Newark. But that part depends on Delaware finishing station upgrades by the 2030s. After 2040, things would pick up even more, with hourly off-peak and weekend service to Virginia and trains to Delaware running every 2 hours. It's an ambitious vision that could make life a lot easier for cross-border commuters, but there's still a long way to go and a serious funding gap to close before it all becomes reality. So, how's the government doing with this project? Have any real steps been taken yet? Let's find out in the next part. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any updates about the world of trains. Surprisingly, the idea of linking MARC and VRE isn't new. It's actually been tossed around in reports and studies for over 10 years. What's changed recently is that there's finally some real movement. In 2023, Maryland and Virginia signed a formal agreement to seriously explore through-running service, which would allow MARC and VRE trains to operate on each other's tracks. That might sound simple, but it's a big logistical leap and a big step toward building a more connected, truly regional rail network for the DC metro area and beyond. Upgrading and expanding the MARC system is a massive undertaking, and not surprisingly, it comes with a big price tag. According to the MARC Growth and Transformation Plan, the total estimated capital investment through the final phase adds up to around $13.7 billion. That number includes just about everything needed to transform MARC from a traditional commuter service into a modern, regional rail network. We're talking new trains, upgraded stations, expanded storage, environmental studies, right-of-way purchases, and more. It's not just about laying new tracks, it's about rethinking the whole system to be faster, more reliable, and ready for the future. Right now, the plan is being rolled out in stages, so people won't have to wait until 2050 to see improvements. Maryland's MARC Growth and Transformation Plan lays everything out in 3 phases. A 5-year phase focused on near-term service increases and infrastructure prep, a 15-year phase that introduces weekend and off-peak service, and what they're calling an unconstrained phase, where the system really expands its reach with cross-state trains and new destinations like Alexandria, Virginia, and even Cumberland, Maryland. Each phase depends not just on state funding, but also on collaboration, especially with the freight railroads like CSX, which own large parts of the track used by MARC. That's where things get tricky. Even if Maryland and Virginia are aligned politically and financially, they still need buy-in from private rail operators and compliance with federal and state regulations. The final phase, the unconstrained one, assumes big policy wins like full implementation of Maryland's 2022 Regional Rail Transformation Act, which pushes for interoperability and shared access. In other words, it's not just about building more stations or running more trains. It's about negotiating access, aligning schedules, investing in signaling and platforms, and getting multiple agencies to play nice together. If all goes well, riders could eventually hop on a MARC train in Maryland and ride straight into Virginia without needing to switch. Maryland's MARC expansion is designed to roll out in 3 major phases, starting with improvements you'll see in the near future. In the first 5 years, 2026 to 2030, the focus is on practical upgrades, especially for riders in places like Frederick and Brunswick. Expect more weekday trains on the Brunswick line, with hourly service during rush hours and new off-peak trips to DC. There's also a new bus route coming between Hagerstown and the Monocacy Station. These changes are aimed at giving riders more flexibility, better commuting options, and even a boost for local tourism. To make it happen, Maryland plans to invest over $476 million during this first phase, mostly to keep the system in good working order and meet existing commitments, like payments to Amtrak for the Northeast Corridor and agreements with CSX. Then, from 2031 to 2040, the second phase ramps things up with more than $1.17 billion in planned spending. This stage focuses on larger upgrades, like replacing aging train fleets and making big infrastructure improvements. Finally, there's the most ambitious part of the plan, the unconstrained phase. This is where over $5.4 billion could be invested in wide-reaching service expansion, new routes and destinations, and a full modernization of the MARC system. It's a long-term vision, but it sets the foundation for a faster, more flexible, and fully regional rail network. Looking ahead, the later phases of the MARC expansion plan aim to bring even more transformative changes. These include adding weekend service, extending the Brunswick line all the way to Alexandria, Virginia, and building new stations in areas like Hancock and Cumberland. The big picture goal is to shift MARC from a system that mainly serves weekday commuters into a more frequent, flexible, and fully regional rail network, one that better matches how people live and work today. The demand is already showing. Brunswick line ridership jumped 85% in 2025, a clear sign that riders are ready for more service. But expansion isn't the whole story. There's also a separate $7.1 billion in baseline costs just to keep the existing system safe, reliable, and in good shape. This includes essential C-37 projects, infrastructure upgrades that don't directly grow MARC's reach, but are critical for supporting its overall performance, especially on the busy Penn line, as all of these cost estimates, whether for expansion or maintenance, are grounded in real-world data and use federal standards set by the FTA and FRA. They also reflect lessons learned from other large transit projects around the DC region. So while $13.7 billion might sound like a huge number, it's not just about growing the system. It's about making a serious, long-term investment to keep trains running smoothly, improve the rider experience, and finally build the kind of modern regional rail service that people in Maryland, Virginia, and DC have been waiting for. But what exactly will riders see first? And how soon can they expect these changes to hit the tracks? The MARC Growth and Transformation Plan promises to deliver a dramatic upgrade in regional rail service with far-reaching benefits for commuters, local economies, and the broader transit network. Riders can look forward to faster trips, up to 19% quicker between Washington, D.C., and Baltimore, making train travel up to 30 minutes faster than by car during peak hours. Daily service will expand significantly, with station stops increasing by as much as 175% across all lines. Seamless connections will also become the norm, with over 90 new daily opportunities to transfer to local transit systems like buses and subways, and more than 20 new links to commuter rail systems such as VRE and SEPTA. This improved accessibility is expected to drive ridership and better align service with demand, leading to a notable increase in available seating, up to 52% more on the Brunswick line alone. Perhaps most importantly, the expansion will bring more people and jobs within reach of MARC, boosting access by 28% on the Penn line and 52% on the Brunswick line, and fueling economic growth throughout the region. Imagine if you're someone who travels between DC and Baltimore, this plan could make your life a lot easier. The idea is to have trains stop at both L'Enfant Plaza and Union Station, which means better connections to the metro and more ways to get where you're going. Of course, it's still early, nothing's been built yet, and there's no guaranteed funding, but just putting this proposal out there shows that Maryland is starting to think bigger about its transit future. If it actually happens, it could change how people move all across the Mid-Atlantic. Commuters could save time, families would have more flexibility, and more people could get to good jobs and opportunities. But making it real isn't going to be easy. It'll take strong leadership, smart planning, and a real push to treat transit like a top priority, not just an afterthought. The next few years in Annapolis are going to be huge. If Maryland wants trains that connect people and places in a meaningful way, the time to get serious about funding is right now. Furthermore, as part of the 2024 MTA Climate Action Plan, the MARC Growth and Transformation Plan is designed to help reduce traffic congestion and lower environmental impacts across the MARC system. It encourages a shift from driving to public transit by expanding service, increasing capacity, and making it easier to bring bikes on board through updates to the train fleet. The plan also explores the use of zero-emission locomotives and supports transit-oriented development around MARC stations. To improve first and last mile connections, it looks at integrating micromobility options like scooters and bike shares. At the same time, it aims to raise public awareness about the environmental benefits of using MARC. Together, these efforts align with MTA's broader goals of boosting ridership and reducing per capita vehicle miles traveled across Maryland, as outlined in the Maryland Transportation Plan. With all these benefits, this new project could breathe new life into the U.S. rail industry. But how will the public respond? Are you excited about the arrival of this expanded train service? Drop a 1 if you agree, and 0 if you don't. On Reddit, the public response to the proposed MARC expansion has been largely positive, though mixed with a healthy dose of realism and skepticism. Many users expressed enthusiasm for the idea of expanded commuter rail service, especially when comparing the cost savings over Amtrak. One user summed it up bluntly: "That'd be amazing." The difference in price between Amtrak and commuter rail is no joke. Others echoed that sentiment, saying it's a far more practical investment than a $200 high-speed rail ticket. There's strong support for through running into Northern Virginia, with people noting that being able to skip the metro transfer would be a real time saver for commuters. Some even suggested new routes, like adding a MARC line from Waldorf to DC. Still, while many called the vision fantastic and really cool, there's also a shared concern that it may be too ambitious to actually get funded and implemented. One commenter pointed out Maryland's recent budget struggles and questioned whether the state could realistically afford such a major rail overhaul. A few users also criticized the lack of more modern rolling stock in the plan, wishing MARC would move to multiple unit trains for faster acceleration and metro-like service on the Penn line. And there's an undercurrent of tension with Amtrak, as several users mentioned that this kind of expansion could cap Amtrak's prices or force competition. Still, despite the doubts, the overall vibe is hopeful. As one person put it, "God, I hope it finally happens. It just makes so much sense. As MARC moves toward a more connected and ambitious future, it's clear that this isn't just a win for Maryland. It's a major step forward for regional rail in the U.S. Of course, challenges remain: funding gaps, coordination with freight rail, and political will. But with the MARC Growth and Transformation Plan on track, the pieces are finally coming together. Whether you're a daily commuter, a transit advocate, or just someone who dreams of a better way to travel, this expansion is something worth watching. Thanks for joining us on Great Train Speed. The future of rail is rolling in, and we'll be here to cover every mile of it. Until next time, peace.